a presentation by Haridu exploring the topic, do women mature psychologically faster than men? The theory of neurobiology is defined as a psychological approach that attempts to interlink human behavior to the electrical and chemical activities taking place in the brain and central nervous system, which will help us investigate why women tend to develop sooner relative to men in certain areas of the cognitive development domain. The gender differences in brain structure, function, and development will act as a basis for making the comparison between the rate of development between the two sexes. One such development is termed as preferential detachment, where during the cognitive development process, the neural connections that already exist within the brains of both males and females undergo pruning. More importantly, this reorganization process has been found to happen faster in females than in males, which can help explain why girls tend to mature sooner than boys. Additionally, white and gray matter development occurs differently for males and females. The organization of the white and gray matter fibers that play a crucial role in the cognitive development and intelligence of a person occur later in boys relative to girls, further reinforcing the greater rate of maturation attributed to women. Lastly, the functional organization of the female brain can give them an advantage in certain aspects of development, such as in the acquisition of communication and the language system over men. Developing a functional language system and a means of communication is crucial in the development and maturation of a person. This can help underline why males take longer to act their age compared to females. A study led by Dr. Marcus Kaiser and Mrs. Sol Lim at Newcastle University explored the reorganization of the neural connections in the brains of people aged up to 40. This study depicted a couple of major points that helps build a basis for explaining why women reach maturity faster than men. The study found that the fibers connecting cells already close to each other, known as short connections, are gotten rid of, and the connections that bridge far-flung regions of the brain are kept during the development process. According to Mrs. Sol Lim, initially there is an quote, an overabundance of neurons, connections, and foldings of the brain surface, end quote, indicating that to maximize the brain performance, the neural connections require pruning, where the redundant connections are gotten rid of and the ones that are more useful are kept, which helps understand why the brain does not deteriorate but rather function enhances as the number of neural connections condenses. The study suggests that this development process of pruning begins a couple of years after birth and continues until the age of 40. As people develop, the brain undergoes major reorganization structurally and functionally, and this is done with the purpose of making the brain function more efficient and economical, and therefore is key in cognitive development and maturation. The key observation to be made here is that this process tends to happen faster in women than in men, according to the study. The image to the left illustrates the amount of neural connections that existed in the brain of a 4-year-old subject within the study, and simply highlights the amount of neural connections that exist within a person even during early stages of development. Gray and white matter, which play crucial roles in brain function and intelligence, develops differently between males and females. A study titled Developmental Differences in White Matter Architecture Between Boys and Girls by authors Vincent J. Smith-Rose, Scott K. Holland, and Bernard J. explores this in further detail. The study illustrates that volume increases in white and gray matter differentiates between males and females, and so does the total cerebral volume. The study states, quote, adult men possess a greater portion of white matter compared to adult women, who possess a correspondingly greater portion of gray matter relative to total cerebral volume, end quote. To simply put it, women have more white matter than men, whereas men have more gray matter than women in their brains. Gray matter represents information processing centers within the brain, and white matter represents the networking or connections between these processing centers, which simply indicates the importance of white and gray matter in the cognitive development and maturation of a person. The image to the left of the slide simply highlights and compares the quantities of white and gray matter that exist between men and women, and shows that men have more gray matter and women have more white matter. Nevertheless, the key component of this study is not the volumes of gray and white matter between the two sexes, rather the organization of white and gray matter fibers. The study states, quote, our results thus indicate that the organization of the splenium fiber tracts occurs later in boys than in girls, end quote. This observation simply supports the notion that males showed a delayed start in the organization and development process of white and gray matter fibers. The comparison between the different rates of white and gray matter development between the two sexes acts as evidence for why women psychologically mature quicker than men. According to a study titled Sex Differences in Early Communication Development, Behavioral and Neurobiological Indicators of More Vulnerable Communication System Development in Boys, there are systematic differences in communication and verbal abilities between males and females, which are crucial in the maturation of a person and their cognitive development. The study states that it found, quote, significantly higher prevalence of communication, language, and speech disorders in boys than in girls. Likewise, the normal process of communication and language skill development is faster and more advanced in girls compared with boys, end quote. Meaning that not only does the communication and language system develop faster in girls compared to boys, but males are more likely to suffer a communication or language disorder that could hinder their maturation and stunt their development. According to the study, during the first years of life, girls on average acquire language faster than boys and have a larger vocabulary. For example, at 16 months, girls have a vocabulary of 95 words, while boys have a vocabulary of 25 words, end quote, which simply reinforces the objective that communication system important to a person's maturity develops faster in females compared to males. Furthermore, the study states, quote, it seems that boys have a weaker or slower capacity for language acquisition, end quote. The study then goes on to back this up by observing that, quote, boys represent more than 70% of late talkers and just 30% of early talkers. Boys lag behind girls in the development of many communication features such as eye contact, gesture use, gesture imitation, joint attention, and social referencing, end quote, which again reinforces the notion that communication features and capabilities important to a person's maturation and reflective of their cognitive development occur later for males compared to females. And as seen, the image to the left side of this slide simply highlights the structure of the neural connections that exist within females that give them an upper hand in verbal skills and initiative abilities. The first source is a peer-reviewed article published on Psychology Today, and although the publisher is a media company, they focus their journalistic attention on psychology and human behavior, which makes the information that they provide more relevant to the topic relative to other media companies. A limitation of the article seems to be that they have not provided a reference list, although they do provide referencing through the form of linking to studies within the article as a way of backing the concepts that they propose and evaluate. The source that it mainly references is a study conducted and published by the Newcastle University, indicating its high quality. Most of the information provided within the article was fitting evidence to the objective that women develop neural connections faster relative to men, and this was because they directly explored the idea of why women mature faster than men in the context of neural connections, hence the comparisons made in the article were very relevant. The second source is a study published in the National Center for Biotechnology Information, and it's a study that explores and, more importantly, contrasts the development differences of white and grey matter between the two sexes, which is relevant in providing evidence to reinforce the objective that women develop white and grey matter fibers quicker than men do. The study also provides a reference list from many reputable sources, and the publisher NCBI is a reputable source themselves, as they're a branch of the National Institute of Health and a part of the United States National Library of Medicine. Some limitations of this article are that they delve deeper into other areas regarding white and grey matter and provide information that is not useful to the topic. Source 3 is also a study published in the NCBI, and the reputability of NCBI talked about in the context of the last source is also applicable to this source. Furthermore, both the studies are primary sources providing their own research data through experimental procedure, and the content of this study that explored the development of the communication and language system of males and females was mainly relevant as it acted as strong evidence for the notion that the communication system develops faster in women than in men. However, the study also provided other correlations such as the role of sex hormones in the development of the communication system which were irrelevant to the topic. The theories explored in the three objectives related to development of neural connections, white and grey matter, and communication system development between males and females all provide a basis for exploring why women tend to develop psychologically faster than men. The evidence from the first source helped realize the observation that females go through the reorganization of neural connections vital to maturity at a greater pace than males. In addition to this, the second source compared the development of white and grey matter between the two sexes, which revealed the observation that females tend to develop white and grey matter fibers at an earlier time frame. Lastly, the third source revealed that females can acquire a developed communication and language system at a quicker rate. Communication systems are paramount when it comes to cognitive development and maturity. Therefore, females being able to develop this system faster indicates a faster rate of psychological maturity. In conclusion, the three sources are relatively reliable and provide relevant material that sufficiently acts as evidence to prove the position the topic poses, which is that women mature psychologically faster than men.